Hello, today's Wednesday, September 18th, and we're here with more news, and Wendell has a new water bottle. Because he finished his Coke.
Amazing technology.
Yeah.
Glorious. We're here to talk about business and robots. And we have a big old block of Apple.
Big.
Boy, is it exciting.
There was an Apple event.
We're going to wait a little bit, get to that later. First, let's make all of these sycophants super happy and talk about some positive news about SpaceX.
SpaceX confirms it's almost ready to test its orbital Starship. So this article talks about like the FAA and the FCC. So I guess this is kind of a leak from the FCC, but the FAA approved them expanding their base of operations so that they could launch more stuff into space. And the FCC had to be consulted so that they could have communication with this thing. They're basically going to launch it into orbit, but SpaceX was quick to point out that it's not really, like, this is still a test ship and it's not actually going to go into orbit. They're just going to go through all the motions necessary for when they actually do the test to actually put it in orbit. But the next launch is not actually going to be in orbit, but it's going to be a full spaceship.
This is the follow-up for the Hopper. So what this thing is going to do is, it's kind of like the rockets. Launches itself up there, but it can also come back down and land. Pretty cool.
Can you imagine telling like the people that were really excited for the space shuttle in the 80s that, oh yeah, when the space shuttle's done, it's just going to come back and land vertically.
With you in it. And I wonder how traumatic that landing process is. Like, how many G's do you pull with those landing rockets? I guess it could be fairly soft.
Less than 5?
Guess we'll find out.
Not more than 7?
So we talked about all the big tech companies and how they are under fire from the governments of the world and universally hated. As we go hard into election season, they are tied to a whipping post, and they're going to get flogged more and more, and they probably deserve it. But another threat that they have to deal with is internal. For example, Google employees hate everything. They love to talk about it, but usually who isn't, I'm sure they have these same feelings, but I think fear keeps them in control, are the Amazon workers. But that's the warehouse peons. What about the white-collar Amazon workers?
Amazon employees are walking out over the company's huge carbon footprint. Nearly 1,000 employees have pledged to walk out September 20th to demand the company go to zero emissions by 2030. Guess we'll report on that next week.
I don't really understand how they expect that to happen with a company that literally has like its own fleets of jets and like they're a logistics company essentially.
We did that story on it was like the guy from Kenya or somewhere, and he had a drone that could plant trees. Like Bezos could just spend like $1 million and get a bunch of those, go plant trees forever, and it would immediately offset.
We don't have the land mass to plant enough trees to offset Amazon. That's crazy.
He could buy Idaho or something.
Wouldn't the real key here be just don't order from Amazon as much?
Well, I'm not doing that.
I don't know if it would. I think that, like, if you think about, think about the logistics of Amazon. Like, if it is the complete system, is Amazon more or less wasteful than what was there before it?
Have you seen some of the way?
I'd say more.
The way they box some of those items.
Yeah, there were whole
that's a training issue
devoted to Amazon when I flew recently, and I was like, wow, I've not flown in a while, and I didn't realize how much Amazon had taken over the airport.
So I guess the question would be: is what was traditionally truck travel has been replaced with air travel?
Well, it's both though, because they also have to take it to your house. I mean, the other goods that you were buying in store also had to be shipped. So I don't know.
But that's not Amazon. That's a mercenary delivery guy.
Yeah,
contractor.
I'm sure that the natural gas UPS truck is far more fuel efficient than the average, family truckster.
I don't think it's more efficient. It's probably very equal to what it was before.
I think they're already moving in a very positive direction, because by replacing all of their warehouse employees with robots, those people will starve to death or be too poor to breed. And then, human-caused climate change will reduce because there's less humans.
Or those people will riot in the streets.
And we'll put them down and eat them. Did you see that proposal where they want to eat human flesh to lower the carbon footprint. I don't know if it was a modest
that like
proposal.
yeah, I was saying, was that a spoof? Yeah.
Equifax. Remember Equifax? They did a very bad thing. And they settled for pennies on the dollar. But you could get a part of that. You could get up to $125. And a lot of people wanted a free $125. But there's some bad news if you're one of those people.
If you asked Equifax for the $125, you need to update your request. So if you haven't been just blind with rage this week and you're into feeling blind with rage, you want to go read this article. It's amazing. So the FTC and like just the backstory here, the FTC and Equifax settled, and it was called a $575 million settlement. But this article systematically takes apart that settlement to show that Equifax really probably isn't going to pay anything. The fund for paying out people that were interested in the $125 was vanishingly small. It was what, like
$700 million.
Yeah, it's like it was hardly anything. Was it? I don't think it was $700 million. I think it was like it was even less than that.
$7.
Yeah, they settled for $700 million, but that
$31 million for consumers.
Yeah.
No, that's nothing.
Yeah, so the FTC was like, yeah, this credit monitoring thing, people will actually do the credit monitoring thing, which is worth this amount of money. So the $700 million settlement is like as if everybody participates in this and takes advantage of the commercial value of the credit monitoring. But the reality is most people already have credit monitoring, either because of another data breach or just because their credit cards and financial institutions already provide credit monitoring and identity theft monitoring services because it's so rampant. So the Equifax basically wasn't going to have to do anything here. I mean, it literally, like actual money out of pocket, not $700 million. It's like maybe 30 or 40 million, maybe not even that. So many consumers signed up for the free $125 that you're not going to get it.
That's not what this is about. The thing about what they're saying here is the $125 is to pay for credit monitoring. To get it, you must prove that you have credit monitoring. If you don't have credit monitoring, your $125 will be converted into free credit monitoring.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Great.
of
Thank
the
you.
people who signed up, maybe 40% have credit monitoring. And of those 40%, maybe 10% will know to do this.
Yeah, you were getting an email over the weekend about this. And also, when you go to the new website, you have to agree that the arbiter will ask for more information later, like the person who's arbitrating the settlement or whatever, and they are going to ask for more information later. So you have to watch your email again. So nobody's going to get the money.
There'll be a couple people who doggedly go after it, but they'll spend more man hours. They'll be getting like $10 an hour.
Yeah.
By the time they go through all the hoops.
And they're not going to get the full $125, I would say.
Well, once they winnow it down with this, you might get more than $125, but very few people will get it.
Yeah.
So Equifax gets away with one.
They're just going to keep you on the treadmill is what I meant. Like, they're just, if the people don't respond to this, they're like, yes, everybody's going to go for the free credit monitoring. But if a lot of people respond to this, it's like, oh, we need this other information and this other information. This is evil.
But even if you can't get the $125 because you don't have credit monitoring, you should get the credit monitoring, even if you don't care, because at least it costs them money.
It doesn't actually. The article says that it doesn't actually cost them any money, or it calls into question that they would actually pay.
They're going to do it internally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to cost them $125, but it'll cost them something. And if everybody does it,
It's I think the first 3 years it goes through Experian, and they wouldn't comment if they had a deal with Experian to do this already. But then after that, after the first 3 years or whatever, Equifax gets to do your credit monitoring.
No thanks.
they shouldn't do this.
Hard pass.
Like I said, blind with rage.
All right, I'm going to head out.
So, AT&T, everybody hates them, right? I know I do. And that's why stories like these just got to make you smile. Because we see one of these pretty much every quarter. Because every quarter, AT&T has to tell its shareholders how many accounts it lost.
AT&T to lose 1.1 million TV subscribers as DirecTV continues to nosedive. I like
I love this stock photo.
the explanation to shareholders was that because AT&T has been, quote, negotiating aggressively with rights holders, that there have been blackouts. So the people that have left the numbers have accelerated, according to AT&T, not because of fee increases or because they're awful, but because people stopped getting the content that they were paying for.
They were paying more for it.
So somehow that doesn't translate to just not being satisfied with them. It's just, oops.
As a shareholder, you get your say at some of these conference calls and shareholder meetings, and the shareholders universally are saying, why did you invest in television? What's wrong with you? Could you have made a worse decision? You understand what year it is?
Remember when we were like a wireline service? AT&T owns more wired and they bought a satellite company, like a satellite TV company. Like what?
It's the future, man.
Even better, this 1.1 million doesn't count. It's AT&T now or DirecTV now, or they renamed it. I don't know, but it doesn't count that. Yeah. So like their Netflix thing also lost subscribers, even more than not more than 1.1 million, but it's not included in that number. So it just gets worse.
AT&T is never going to be able to recoup its investment.
Well, they'll just have to raise fees, then, won't they?
Yeah, that's the current strategy. Yes, we'll see how it works out for them, Cotton. It's a bold move.
So
grab your caramel. Here comes the Apple block.
Yep. Thus comes Apple. Now we talked about in the last episode that Apple all of a sudden is like, you know what? Maybe right to repair is okay, and also that the whole like we need privacy legislation and well, it seems like they made a lot of rash decisions based on that threat that the FTC is coming after them. I think this is one of them.
Apple just turned its extended warranty for the iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch into a monthly subscription. AppleCare Plus is no longer limited to 24 months of coverage. It'll run forever. I can't wait for the loopholes.
Yeah.
Well, the loophole, we already know the loophole. That's 2 repairs in a 24-month period.
What about like a battery? Like your phone battery wears out after 600 charges.
That's a strike. You get 2.
Wow.
You get 1 a year. If you crack your screen, you don't get your battery.
Oh, but the new suite of things has a better screen, so don't worry about that.
Which will be more expensive to replace.
Yes. But it'll never crack, quote unquote.
But if you're one of those people who refuses to upgrade and you want to keep your Apple product limping along 6 years down the road, maybe it makes sense.
That would be amazing. Like bring an ancient, like 10 years from now, bring an iPhone 7 in and be like, no, you must repair this.
But I think there was another loophole that it has to be within their repair window.
Yeah.
So at some point, although presumably then that would kick down into the right to repair thing, so you could take it to a third party and they do it for $10.
Yeah.
So you're covered. It's a decent thing, I guess. I mean, it's a small concession, but at least they're making concessions, right? And they didn't just introduce that; they introduced a bunch of new hardware, and maybe more interestingly, several new services.
All the new details about Apple Arcade. Everybody saw Apple playing Frogger, right? Like that was their thing.
That was their big acquisition.
Apple Arcade is going to be $5 a month, which normally Apple stuff is insanely overpriced, and not because I think this is a good value. I think that $5 probably means that that's about what Apple thinks it's worth right now.
I didn't see any game titles that I even recognize. So they talked about
Frogger. That was about it. Yeah.
Sayonara Wild Hearts. I don't
no idea what that is.
Yeah, and Shinsekai. Nope. Into the Depths. We've all heard of Frogger, but I mean, so I'm sure all of you have gone through that. It's like, oh, I got an emulator. Look at all these classic games. Oh, Frogger. You play it for 10 minutes and you're like, that's about what the joy from this game could be, about 10 minutes.
Yeah. I liked Frogger a lot. I played it more than that when I was a kid, but now as an adult, I don't know if I would
go back to it.
Yeah.
And next week, tell us how you feel.
Yeah, we played some of that stuff on the arcade cabinet, and it was like, oh, this isn't fun at all.
There was also some games on the arcade cabinet. It was like, what is this game? Like,
yeah. So that was, however, not the only service that they announced at their event. And this service, now the thing about this service is it's cheap, right? But it also doesn't have a back catalog. So you got to wonder what's there on day one.
Apple prices TV plus video service at $4.99 a month. hitting Netflix. Oh, it's cheaper than everybody. It's because nothing is there.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like the old episodes of Mystery Science Theater?
Now they did.
That would be worth it.
They quoted. Bloomberg. So there was a show, apparently some kind of reality show made by that guy who was Aquaman.
Oh yeah.
And I think
The new one?
Jason Momoa.
Jennifer Aniston had some sort of vehicle on there. I don't know, but it's nothing that. It's not like any of the big IPs, right? It's just this weird.
It would make sense if Apple would just go to somebody like Taylor Swift and be like, we're going to give you everything. Like, you can have your own channel that's just your music videos and anything you want to do. And, like, we'll pay for everything and give you a lot of money and just do it.
Yeah, but see, Sirius Radio tried to do that. And you know what they figured out? Those people got nothing to say. Like, they gave Eminem a channel on Sirius Radio. I think he's been on it like 5 times. So, yeah. And on to the hardware that came out at the Apple event. It's all just refreshes, right? But there were some noteworthy new additions that were kind of surprising.
Surprise! Apple unveils its 7th gen iPad with a 10.2-inch display. This is the one that had the weak sauce processor in it, though. It's the same processor as like the iPhone from a generation ago or something like that.
But it's cheap.
But it's cheap.
It is very cheap. I think it's like $300.
It's 10.2 inches instead of 9.7.
And if
You didn't mention if it was pencil compatible. I'm assuming it is.
if you're one of those people who just desperately needs to be noticed, they got your back.
Apple Watch Series 5 has an always-on display and comes in titanium or ceramic finishes,
Titanium.
in addition to all the old finishes. So, yeah, the display is going to be on all the time now.
18-hour
Great.
battery life.
Great. Everything I ever wanted.
It's got a lower battery life than your phone. But hey, you don't have to slightly move your wrist to tell what time it is.
It does get brighter when you slightly move your wrist.
If you're in a coma and you can still move your eyes, this is if you're paralyzed, if you're quadriplegic and you can only move your eyes and your mouth, this is a perfect gift. Although, how would they recharge it?
Well, I thought you meant from like an accident. Like, you were at the construction site and you got impaled by rebar and now you're paralyzed.
No, I'm saying you're laying there.
Oh.
And you can look at it and tell what time it is at any given time.
Because you can't move.
Unlike other watches. But then you have to charge it
That's rough.
after 18 hours.
Yeah, that's not good. Although if you're not moving around too much, maybe you can just like... Oh, it doesn't have a charge port though. Well, that's too bad.
They also, that costs more than the iPad.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed that part of the article.
You can tell that Krista's not... like, you got the iPad Pro, but then it's like...
So let's talk about gaming phones. Man, gaming phones are so in another world to me. I can't even imagine playing games on phones. But I know
I'm
it's
being
just...
that serious about it, yeah.
I know that's just because I'm old and out of touch, because apparently the world loves it. And we have entered into a world where superpowered gaming phones are a thing.
ASUS ROG Phone 2 benchmark preview. The fastest Android iPhone ever. Not iPhone.
Did you say iPhone? Yeah.
I did. The power of suggestion. So I went down the rabbit hole on this one a little bit. This phone is insanely fast. It's got like 12 gigs of memory and an insanely fast processor and like a 6 amp battery. It is nuts. It is just utterly bananas.
Don't forget the cooling clamp.
Oh, I remember that now.
Yeah, you can. But I think you can if you just want a flagship phone, this is it. Like if you made a like the fantasy wish list of like the most ridiculous phone specs ever, this phone is that.
It's got 12 gigs of RAM.
You don't have to use it as a gaming phone. You can just use it as a ridiculous Android phone.
Yeah, that was my thought. That's kind of like, if you want the best PC possible, you buy gaming parts, right? And same is true for phones. So,
well, I expected this thing to be insanely expensive too. I was very surprised. It was only about $600 for the base model. The one thing that I think they left out is there's no micro SD slot.
But you can get up to a terabyte.
Yeah, but that costs $1,200, which is a little...
How much do you want a game?
It's a little more
You
unpalatable.
need to be able to game at all times. That's why you need it on your phone.
The camera is also pretty meh, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't care about that either.
I'll see. I like having a nice
The camera on my phone has started failing.
Oh, you can get that fixed under warranty.
Planned obsolescence. Is it under warranty? It's a whole
Probably.
What are you going to do if you want to take cat videos?
That's what I've been doing, and it's been crapping out.
If it's not under warranty, it's eligible for replacement.
You have to take one of the big cameras home. Just for cat videos.
So, as we talked about AT&T having a bit of a problem, maybe a major problem. Some of the other tech companies aren't doing that great either. We've entered into this new world where we had all these magical IPOs in the last couple of years, but then we just had WeWork. And it was like, oh, a realistic valuation? That's not fair. What's going on? And one of the IPO unicorns was Uber. But Uber seems to be falling back to reality.
Uber lays off 435 people across engineering and product teams. Oh, no.
That's going to go right in the shitter.
Can we get back to the days of Instagram where the $1 billion Instagram valuation happened when they only had 13 employees? That's probably about where we need to be with Uber. Because, I mean, how many people does it take to maintain the infrastructure to do that?
Well, that seems to be what they're settling on, right? So they actually talk about how when they went through all that situation and the money was just like they couldn't shovel it up fast enough, they just threw it into employees and were like, go and make beautiful new things. And now reality is hit and they're like, oh, we don't need any of you.
I thought this was going to be like really catastrophic, but it turns out this was only 8% of the workforce according to the article.
Massive. And what are those people doing?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I feel like with an established app like this, you wouldn't need to make that many changes to it that often.
And the workforce, like the real ham and egg people, are not employees, as we've covered. Although they will be in California, which they mention here, and it might be a big part of this, is like, oh, we need to get ready for the fact that we might have to actually turn our employees into employees.
I mean, I could see having like one dedicated employee for like your larger markets, and then like 5 or 6 employees for like the U.S. for the smaller markets, like that are just all of the smaller markets. But I would be hard pressed to come up with more than like 100 or 200 roles at Uber for what Uber does, because everything should be automated.
I don't know. I'd be interested to know what they all do all day.
Instagram did it.
They all post on Instagram. That's what they do all day. And speaking of doomed business models,
Ooh.
Following up close on the heels of AT&T is a store that no one needs anymore.
GameStop is closing 200 stores following another quarter of dismal sales. You know what you can get on Amazon with Prime next day delivery?
You know what you can get on Steam and get it right this second?
And yet the one in my hometown continues to do well.
Yep.
It's still going strong.
Well, I mean, so GameStop stopped carrying PC games a long time ago. I was talking about console games, which still depend on the cartridges.
No, they don't.
They don't, though. Yeah, they all have
Modern consoles have the online stores,
yeah.
And you can even buy keys from key sellers now for the consoles.
Yeah, I mean, it's just made GameStop irrelevant.
So...
It's too bad.
Is it though?
I can remember going to GameStop and discovering some games that I would not have otherwise bought, like watching them or hearing about them. I was like, and then actually playing them on the kiosk was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun.
It's a little bit sad, I think, for people who live in like rural communities, like where I grew up, because having like the GameStop there, it was kind of like, you know, when that came in, that was like a little haven for the nerds in the town.
There was a DS game that that didn't look like it was any fun, but it was actually a lot of fun, and they just happened to have a kiosk there, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty fun. It was like Hotel Dusk or something.
So maybe you're saying that game companies should go back to offering demos?
Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
That would be nice.
I do.
They do that sometimes on the Switch.
Sometimes you get the free play weekend on the Steam as well.
Yeah, well, Overwatch does that, the free weekends.
I've seen a couple of indie PC games do demos recently.
A lot of the indie games that we've discovered that I really like have been free weekend.
But I don't want to go back to the shareware days when the first third of the game was incredible and the latter 2/3 were just trash because they wanted to get you in the first third because that was the shareware part. That was a bad business model.
That was bad.
Oh, let's talk about Elon Musk, but not really. You got to get his name in the headline, right?
Yeah.
For anybody to read the story.
E-car departure at Volkswagen. Without Elon Musk, my job would have been much harder, says the chief strategist. This article does that like 3 or 4 times. This has nothing to do. It's nothing to do with Tesla. Nothing. It's about Volkswagen.
It's about this ID3, which they do not have a picture of without this stupid squiggly reflection all over it.
Oh.
But this is Volkswagen's entry into the electric car world.
And they talk about how they're just not going to do internal combustion engines anymore. They've peaked. They've
peaked.
So,
but it's outlawed.
You're not even beginning
like,
to peak.
Isn't it like 2040 in Germany? They got to be gone.
yeah. You can't have burners anymore. No.
So he also talks about
What
how
accent was that supposed to be?
it wasn't one.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it was
There
just
was
a
just- it was
raspy
just
voice.
gruff.
Yeah.
They talked about how Tesla, kind of blazed the trail, but Tesla is sort of a upper tier car. Even the Model 3, what's it start at? 40 grand?
Yeah.
It's a lot for a car.
And Volkswagen is not going after that market. The ID3 is the ham and egg.
Yeah. They talk about the modular design, and that's going to help them with manufacturing and cost and mass production. So maybe they'll be the Model T, the Ford assembly line of electric cars. Although it's kind of weird because you would think that traditional automakers would be able to do electric cars easier, because shouldn't an electric car have fewer moving parts and...
Yeah, but none of the existing technology carries over, right? I mean, because
you have to make a whole new factory setting.
the electric motors have so much torque that everything, I think, has to just kind of be redesigned around that.
I mean, the engineering required to create the assembly line, I can't imagine the engineering of creating the assembly line is that much different. And engineering the car to be built in such a way that it can be assembly lined, that secret sauce seems like it would be very similar for 80% of stuff a car would need to do.
Yeah, well, that's going to require sinking this quarter to make way more money 3 quarters down the road.
Oh, that's a
And
lot.
modern companies just don't do that. No. Google Chrome has an interesting new feature. Of course, it's going to require that you log in to Google Chrome,
Yeah.
which means that you're paying for it with your data.
Google Chrome now lets you send web pages to other devices. So you're in Google Chrome on your desktop and you click a little icon and it shows you a list of everywhere else you're signed into Google Chrome, so you can be like, oh, send this web page to my phone. I'll deal with that later. So Google knows where you are no matter where you are.
And one day you click on that list and you're like, China?
Randy's in Shenzhen? Where's that?
Huawei, we've talked about Huawei, and they are struggling. Why? Because they have the hardware, but they need the software to run it. And all of a sudden, the Western software is cut off to them. What are they going to do? Well, it seems like in China, they are taking a very pragmatic approach that some people will be happy about.
Huawei is selling MateBook laptops with Linux pre-installed to customers in China. Would you say that the trade wars has got them really deep in?
Deep in is Chinese Linux, which definitely doesn't report everything you do to the Communist Party.
It would never do that.
Don't worry.
That's definitely worth an update.
You can get deep in English, right?
Mhm.
So one of the people from what?
It sounded
What
like a
did
that
seal
make
was
that
in there.
noise?
Because I'm
The
trying
straw.
to drink too fast.
Yeah.
That's funny that it punishes you for that. Some person said that ZDNet said that Deep In is one of the most beautiful desktop environments ever invented.
It looks like it looks a lot like Mac OS. The last time I messed with it.
Well, that ruins it, doesn't it?
I'm probably on the State Department is like, what is? No, stop that.
Kickstarter. We usually, when we do a Kickstarter story, it's about why you shouldn't use Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get screwed because they never come through with what they promise. But this week, there's another reason.
Kickstarter has been accused of union busting.
Union busting.
Union
Hell yeah.
They broke the line after firing workers. So I read this and I read the blog post from the person that was fired, and the blog post details a lot of other people that were supposedly fired for union-related activities. And if that's true, Kickstarter's going to find out the hard way that that's not a valid reason to fire people.
Yeah. Although Walmart's been doing it for decades.
Yeah, Walmart somehow gets away with it, though.
Well, it's lobby power. But you shouldn't do that. So
The level 1 predictions come
should've-
true.
well, come. I mean, how hard is this? The sun will rise. That's the level of prediction this was. We talked about AT&T. We talked about GameStop, Uber, but all of those a little bit surprising. Maybe not AT&T so much. I mean, that was a really stupid move. Maybe not GameStop so much because you don't need to buy physical copies. Modern day physical copies, just go and download the game from the internet anyway.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a day one update that's the same size as the disc.
They ship such a buggy mess, there's no choice but to do a day one update.
But even as obvious as all those were, they couldn't compare to the absolute... Everyone predicted this level of this story.
MoviePass will shut down for good on September 14th. That was in the past.
Which has already happened.
Yeah, it's gone. Rip in peace.
So they said that if you have a balance or whatever, you get a refund, or any unused service, you get a refund. And that's pretty much it.
How could they... You just get your subscription back? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So like if your subscription didn't end until the end of September, you get the prorated fees back.
Which is not even enough money to watch one movie a month. Which is maybe why this business didn't work. Modern movies are garbage anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, also there's not really a lot to go see.
On to robots. This one is really cool. Although, it does require that you have something permanently installed in your body. But, you're already going to be getting surgery anyway, right? Why not
just dump that in there?
Pop it in.
New prosthetic legs let amputees feel their foot and knee in real time. So, it's literally Star Trek, basically.
Star Wars.
Well, there's sensors. There's 7 sensors in the bottom of the foot and some sensors in the heel, and it stimulates the nerve that is normally wired up to this part of your foot. And so they found that people that got used to this needed less physical therapy and also consumed less oxygen, which is perhaps an indicator that it was less effort for them to use the prosthetic.
It also detects the angle movement on the joint and puts all that together. And then, they got that. It's plugged into your nerve, and that's really cool.
One of the participants had problems with phantom limb pain, and this implant also helped them with the phantom limb pain.
Although, this is maybe the first baby step toward the Matrix.
Yeah.
You think I can get one for Roosetail?
She gets the bionic tail.
Bless, it's poor baby.
You think... where would the nerve center for the tail be? Would it have to be at the base?
I think there's nerves throughout.
Yeah.
You should look into that, Krista. What if you gave her like a really long tail?
She already had a really long tail. It's part of the problem.
Nah,
why I got injured in the first place.
Like a ridiculously long, like anime tail. That'd be amazing.
She would be like the canine equivalent of like Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man.
You'd pay like $500,000 and she'd just chew it off.
She would. She got her tail caught in a door, and we've been going round and round trying to get her to.
Give us an update on that. Is the pill bottle still working?
The pill bottle's still working. We have medically taped a pill bottle to the end of her tail to keep her from chewing on it because she messed it up the first time after having surgery to fix it.
Or now, if she does actually manage to chew on it, she's chewing on the pill bottle as opposed to her tail.
And not the actual tail. So her stitches are currently intact. We're going back to the vet tomorrow to have them checked.
What is the total cost thus far?
The first surgery was $450 because it was an emergency surgery because it was Saturday. And then the second surgery after she chewed on her tail in recovery was $300.
Oof. What about was there like just an office fee or?
No, we've been good otherwise. Like all her medicines and stuff are included in that, but it was not great. We're hoping it heals up correctly this time.
How addicted do you think she is to painkillers at this point?
That's my husband thinks it's a pill-seeking behavior. She's looking for medicine. She's actually probably more seeking peanut butter because that's how we get her to take her pills.
Every time a door opens, she just runs and sticks her head in it.
She's like, oh yeah, please.
I need it.
I need more peanut butter.
I was going to cut this story. I forgot to. I don't think...
Whoops.
Did you find any new information in this?
There's no new information.
No.
McDonald's, the headline from the BBC was McDonald's is going to use AI for ordering at drive-thrus. Basically, when you go up to the speaker, you just talk to the speaker and tell it what you want. They think that the AI assistant technology is good enough. There's not any new info here, if that's true.
The menu is going to change. So the AI will actually read your license plate while you're waiting in line. And when you get up there, it's like, I know what you want. Here it is. And then you got to wonder how long until it starts pricing based on that. It's like, oh, a Porsche. Maybe you'd like the $7 value meal.
$7 value.
AI is making huge gains, and one of the ways that it makes gains is with the predictive technology. You know, the AI, that's what made Google famous, right? They know what you want before you know what you want. And they've brought that into the world of programming.
Google, Dart 2.5 programming language SDK will supercharge developers. So Dart and Flutter, the language of the new like Android apps, this promises to make Android app development faster, easier, better, whatever,
etc.
The way it's going to do that, if you've used any sort of SDK before, you know, you start typing and the suggestions pop up. It's like, oh, maybe you're typing this function. And you can just, you know, key down or click and pick, and it'll fill it in for you. It'll give you the arguments and what order they go into, which I constantly forget. But this is going to take that a step further, and it's going to go on GitHub and look at all the code. And based on that, it's like, hey, based on what you're typing, I'm pretty sure that you're trying to do this kind of sort, right? Let me just do it for you.
How long until the AI gets them into trouble, like the whole Java lawsuit, where it's like, oh, no, this boilerplate code, that came from the AI. I didn't write that. And then Oracle's like, here, have a, you know, we've got $1 billion judgment against you.
Google does something like that with Gmail now, where it like tries to predict what you're going to write, and I find that actually be really annoying. So.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing that drives me crazy about Gmail is my dad does not respond to emails. Like, that's just not something he does in his old age. He'll send you an email, but if you reply, forget it. It's going into a black hole. But Google now has that thing. It's like, hey, you sent this email. Do you want to follow up? You didn't get a response. It's like, Google, I'm never getting a response. Let it go.
That's how I feel about emailing half our clients.
Yeah, we get the level 1 marketing inbox, and we get all the terrible marketing thing. It's like, hey, you want to check out this Chinese crap for your, you know, YouTube channel?
We get a lot of that.
And sometimes most of the time I don't even reply, but sometimes I'll reply. And Google, like the autocomplete thing, it's like, well, I wasn't going to type that, but you know, I'm real lazy. That's fine.
See, I don't like that. I want to word it my way, so I really hate that they've added that
It's
to
like,
Gmail.
I totally wasn't going to say that, but that's good enough.
So you can get this in other platforms too. They mentioned at least Python has a version of this. So expect future SDKs to have some kind of AI helping you write your code.
Neat.
Should make it easier.
It looks like you're trying to code a cross-site scripting vulnerability. Would you like some help? It's like, no.
It's Clippy.
It looks like you're trying to mine Monero. We have in the robot section, I like to try to find, you know, unique robots, and this one is certainly unique.
From the Imperial College in London, the flying
Sounds
fish
pretty
robot
fancy.
can propel itself out of water and glide through the air. So what it does is it sucks up some water and uses the water as a propellant to force itself out of the water and then glide.
It farts the water out.
It literally does. Well, it's a little bit more violent than a fart because it uses the chemical reaction between the water and, what was it? Some kind of...
Mentos?
It was a little bit more powerful than calcium carbide.
How do you like scale the power of farts? Is that is there a agreed upon scale for that?
This little guy, yeah. So that you see that stream behind him there? That's him pooping out the water, which is what forces. So there's the combustion chamber, and then all that water he sucked up just gets blasted out. And
Students were hard pressed to come up with what the robot would do other than collect water samples.
which it would then fart out in order to escape.
Yeah.
But so they said, let's imagine that you needed a water sample from the East River, for example. You could just toss him in there. He would collect it and then launch himself back onto the land, and you never have to poison yourself by going into the river. He can fly afterwards. He's a glider. So I imagine there's some sort of self-writing software going on there. Otherwise, very low tech, because it's just a chemical reaction and a tube.
Neat.
Maybe I'm sure we can weaponize that. You know, what if it jumped up on the deck of a ship and then blew up?
You're on a list now.
And then it just sprays water all over the deck so you slip and fall. That's
Poison water. Radioactive water. There is a political movement apparently in Russia that is very anti-Putin, anti-Kremlin. They've got some revolutionary new... I guess this is sort of like Russia's Bernie Sanders, right? Or Andrew Yang. And Putin, as you might expect, not a fan. and he has a certain way of dealing with that kind of person. But this guy was brilliant, and he managed to save his precious hard drives.
Anti-Putin politician facing a Kremlin raid uses a drone to fly hard drives away before the government officers can get them. That makes him just seem guilty of something, though.
Really, though? I mean...
They probably would have framed for something either way. So.
So they won... They didn't win the elections, but they managed to chip away at Putin's base dramatically during the last elections. And he claims what's on those hard drives is all that like voter data and strategy and stuff like that. So not only would they, if they got a hold of that, would they, you know, like be able to stop them from doing it maybe, but they could also go after those people.
Mm.
So, and who knows, maybe he is guilty of something. Can we trust that we're not anti-Russian in our U.S. news media bias?
But it was cool that he flew the hard drives away.
Makes him look like some kind of like future hero.
Is the drone AI, or is it an accomplice, or is it like a blimp? It's gone to the stratosphere and it'll only return when it's summoned.
He's like a cyberpunk Jack Sparrow, you know.
But the other question you have to answer is like, how could they not just follow the drone?
Shh, don't think about that.
Did they just get somebody else killed?
It's the best pirate I've ever heard of.
All right, that's all we got for robots. Friday we will come back with security, Krista.
Oh, favorite.
Exciting and nonsense.
My real favorite. Bye.